Hello all. In continuation to the series of what's new in 2023 release wave, let's spend some time today on master data management, which is one of the nicest and needed feature in Business Central by most of the customers. So without wasting further time, let's get into a demo of it. There are already some questions that has been asked to me on different forums, so I'll try to address each and every question. So here is an example. I have three companies in this particular environment. One is Cronus USA, one is my company. These two kind of come by default. And then I created a new company. My company and new company have no data at this moment, whereas Cronus have the evaluation data. Now treat Cronus USA as my master company, as my headquarters, whereas my company and new company are my stores. Now, when I say stores, consider them as my subsidiary companies. Now, the problem that some businesses have is they would like to control some part of the setup data and would like to have one source of truth for that data. That can be your customers, that can be vendors, or maybe items, or maybe bank accounts, and so on and so forth, whatever your business needs are. So before we get into it, let me clarify some very basic questions. One is that it does not work on a push concept. The data is not pushed in this case from Cronus USA to the other two subsidiary company, but it actually works on a pull basis that the subsidiary company will pull the data from the master company. Now let's get into the setup of it. So as we said, it's a pull. We'll have to go to the child company, which is a store one. And here we'll search for master data management. In the master data management setup, what we'll do is we'll start setting this up. As you can see on the setup page, it is asking for the source company from where I would like to copy data from. So I'll choose the company as the Cronus USA. And that's more or less it, and then you enable the synchronization. Now as soon as you enable synchronization, you should get a pop-up like this, which is the synchronization of the data is enabled. To review the tables and field that will be synchronized, choose action synchronize tables. To perform the initial synchronization from Cronus USA, choose start initial synchronization, and after the initial synchronization is done, the job queue entries will continue to synchronize modification, which means it runs using job queue. Okay, let's hit that and let's try to do synchronize tables and see what's there. So let's click on the synchronize tables and see what Microsoft is recommending. So if you see, there's a list of tables that Microsoft is recommending at this point, which is the contact table, the current country, region, currency, and so on and so forth. Let's understand what we can do in this screen. There are tables and then there is a status of enable or disable. So if you don't like some of the tables which are suggested by Microsoft, or if they are not part of the business that you would like to keep the data in sync, then you can either disable them or remove them by using the delete action. So you have both the options. Then going forward, if you would like to customer to be copied from the Cronus USA with a specific filter that only copy record where these conditions are met, then you can use the table filter column here. And if you look at it, there's already a filter applied on the customer table that it will only copy customers who are blocked blank. So if the customers are blanked, either for ship, invoice, or all, those customers will not get copied. So in the same way, you can keep adding filters as you need. There are a lot of tables in it. You can reduce it if needed. Then for each table, there is a set of fields that are part of that table. You click on fields and it'll show you all the fields in that table, irrespective of what extension they are coming from, either a PTE or either an ISV extension, app source extension. It will show you all the fields. And then using again the status, you can enable or disable them. You can multi-select them if needed by using the control icon, and then disable them altogether. Now let's talk about some other fields or properties here. The validate field is pretty simple, that when the data comes in from the source company, would you like to call the on validate trigger of that field? And if yes, if it's needed for the business, you can enable this or keep it empty as needed. Those are the options here. Let's go back and see something else. So we have more or less defined everything that we need. Let's assume we are going with the same list of tables and fields as Microsoft has suggested. Then it said go back and click on start initial synchronization. This will not start the synchronization, but have some details that you should visit. The first thing is that there is a field called synchronization mode, and that is very important because there are two options for the synchronization mode. One is full synchronization, that will copy everything from the source company to the target company for values for all the fields. Otherwise, there is a match based coupling. What is a match based coupling? Let's click on it and we'll see that. So as soon as you have a table where there's a match based coupling is defined, you define based on what field you would like to couple record, which typically should be primary key. So in this case, if you look at it, it is set to be coupled based on the code field, which is the primary key of country and region code. So if there is a record already found based on the code, then it will not create a new record. If the coupling is not found, then it will not, then it will create a new record. And that's how system understand that, okay, this is the value that's needed, this is the value that I need to create. If you have multiple fields, you can keep clicking on them, which typically in the Business Central world should be based on the primary key. If you are on a text field and you would like to do the case sensitive match, if it's a text field, which I don't know when you will require it, but if you need it, you can enable this. And it'll only synchronize after the coupling is done. Hopefully that answers most of the questions. Now, once you are done with that, what you can do is you can click on start all. But before we do that, let's see some of the masters that are part of it. Customers. If you look at it, there are no customers. There's another table that will be coming up called vendors. Let's look at it on store one, and it is also empty. Now let's try to start all. So as you do start all, the way it is built up, it will automatically understand the relationship between all the tables that are listed here. I guess that's how it is working, and it'll start them in that sequence. So when you click start all, it'll show you the message. This will synchronize all coupled and non-coupled record, because this is the initial synchronization. You're not going to run the master data initial synchronization every time. This is the first time where all the data being copied and pushed. Use this options only once, right after enabling the data synchronization with the source company. After this schedule, synchronization job will keep running the synchronization, and you can view the logs. We'll see that the initial synchronization will run in background so that you can continue other tasks, and that's it. So let's do yes. Okay, it says I have tried to do this and it does not exist. Okay, this is a new error in a new environment. Okay, no worries, I have another environment where this should be working, but I have already tested it. So we'll create a new company and see how that works. So what I'll do is I'll pause the recording, I'll create the new company, and then we'll resume from there. Okay, so I've set it up back again. Let's just quickly review one more time before we started. Do we have any customers on this? And we don't. Okay. Similar for vendors. This again the similar setup, the master company and the two child companies. Let's start all. So once you click yes, it should start running the synchronization based in the right sequence. And you can keep on refreshing this page and see how things are changing, because it'll keep on doing it based on the relationship that are set on these tables, which is nice because it's kind of doing it one by one rather than doing it from top to down, which in that way it may fail. You might see errors like we just saw in the initial synchronization, but don't worry about it. The process will try to reinsert that data because maybe there are some validation which are still missing. And if that happens, it'll kind of convert into a success in a while. So let's keep on refreshing this and see where we are. Right now it seems to be doing it for currency. Okay, let's do an F5. Okay, still working with the currency and there are some errors. If you have errors, you can also go back and review those errors if that's a genuine error. Now in the log, you can see when it started, when it ended, what is the duration, how many uncoupled, coupled records, how many were inserted, were there anything modified, deleted, unchanged, and what failed or what is skipped. That's based on the coupling. But you can also come here and see the detail because there was a deadlock activity. So we'll give it a time and it should refresh this and we'll try to attempt it again. So now if you look at it, it did everything and still it's trying to do company contact. So let's this be over and I'm pretty sure it should try to re-attempt these. If it does not, which seems a little bit odd, but let's see what's here. On this, there are 97 and then there are 5 failed because there was a deadlock. Okay, let's try to run the synchronization for this table again. Use full synchronization, and I should have done the header first. My bad. Okay, so I'll select both and do a synchronization. And let's set F5. Okay, it seems to be having some problems right now, but I think it should do that. So let me try to use full synchronization on this table. It is not starting. And this is the first time I'm seeing it. Maybe let me go back and come back in. Sometimes the page does not get updated. It did not still do that. So let me try to restart it. The coupling has scheduled. And let me start this again also. Restart. Okay. Now it should update all these tables. So, okay, finished. So at this moment, all these table masters has been arrived into this new company. Don't go. There's more to this. Okay. So now let's go back and see what we got into our customer master. We got 5 customers and let's look it into a different view, which is the tall tile view with the pictures, and the same customer should be here on the Kronos USA. Okay. Now, as I said in the beginning, that it runs based on job queue. But the cool part is let's have a look on the job queues related to this. You don't have to search for job queue. You can just do it from here, and then you can check the tables from here, and then inside the table you will see the job queue entry. So this is just one table and let's see what the filters are. It says anytime when this object is running. So all that is happening based on 5339 code unit where it is running the synchronization. But there are a lot of it based on how many tables are part of yours. Now let's have a quick look in one of those and see that it says that it will run after every 30 minutes. That's the timeout. But that does not mean that you'll have to wait for 30 minutes when you make a change. Because the way Microsoft have written it is anytime I change anything on my master entity, it will automatically activate that job queue and run it. And let's see what I mean by that. If I change this customer and say the name of this customer is, let's say, my name in the master company, I come out, which is the commit that already been done as soon as I move the tab out of it, and I come back here and refresh this, I should see that the customer name has already been updated here. So it is running from the job queue. If you don't make any change, it will still check it in every 30 minutes. But if you make a change, it will force job queue to run at that time. Now coming back to another important point in your master data management, and let me prove that here first. I'm in my child company, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, let's say, change the salesperson code from LT in the child company to HR. So remember this, the salesperson code in the child company is HR. Now I go back to my master company, and for some reason I would like to update it on all my stores, and I say it is Otis Fall. Let's choose that. Let's come back here, and as we saw earlier, it should automatically get updated instantly, but there was an error. Okay, let's refresh this. Oh, I did not committed it, so that's why it got changed. Okay, so that means whenever you make a change on the child company or anything that it considers a change, you'll have to come out of it. So let's try again. I make it BC, salesperson code in the child company, came out of it. Let's go into the child company again and see that this is set to BC. Okay, now coming back here on the parent company, and I'll go back and change it to a different value. This is a kind of modification happening on both the sides, and I change it to LT. I came back in into my child company. Let's open my customer, and it did not change that. Now what happened? For that, let's go into MDM. Okay, synchronize tables, and we are dealing with the customer table. Let's see the log. The log says that there is a failure. It did not show you on the screen, but there's a failure. Let's understand what the failure is. The failure situation happened because the data could not be updated because the customer 1000 was modified locally since the last synchronization and has a different value on the salesperson code. Before you retry the synchronization, make sure that you allow to overwrite local changes. What that means, that by default, and let me come back here, by default, the values that are coming from the parent should not be modified in the child, and if they get modified, you will have to change some settings. Now understand from this perspective. In the customer card, I would like my store to manage, let's say, all these fields, but I don't want them to manage these fields. And just taking an example, and you can have a different field set for this. Well, let's assume you don't want your stores to change the address for your customer. You would like to change everything, but not the address. So you need to make sure that anytime a value changes in the headquarters, it get forced into your child company. And to make sure that that happens, you have to go to your that particular table, go to those fields, identify that field. That in this case, the field is salesperson code. So let's search for it. Field caption, sales person code, and I'll say override local changes, which means if a store have tried to change that value, don't worry. The synchronization should force whatever is happening. So let's override it. And before it kind of gets triggered, you need to make sure that that is in sync to LT at that point so that the relationship kind of stays. Or let's first try forcing the synchronization into the child. Maybe that works. MDN, synchronize table. Let's pick the customer. And I just want to update it. So I'll say synchronize modified records. It's been scheduled. Let's see the log. What happened? No changes were found because it kind of ignored that. Oh, there was one record modified just a while ago. So let's go back and see what happened. Okay. So now this value should be forced from the HQ to your child. So you need to make sure that the field that you would like to manage from the headquarters to your child companies, you set the override values to be true, local changes to be true. One more thing before we move forward from this topic, which is you can also override local changes at a table level, not just at the field level. So if you say, okay, in the customer table, the local company or the local store cannot make any changes, you can just say override the whole table. And at any time, even if they modify something, the values from the parent will take priority and will be overwritten into this. Okay, let's test out one more thing, which is we have talked, seen the more or less the creation, but and modification. We haven't tested out the deletion. So let's create a new customer, and I'll call it in the headquarters. I'm in the headquarters, and this is my demo, and I'll just come out of it. So I have a new customer. Let's go back to the child and refresh this page and see it should be created. Now what happens if I delete this? Let's delete this customer. Yes. Okay. So if everything goes good, it should also get deleted here, which is not happening. Again, let's go back into MDM, identify the table, which is customer in this case, and see what happened in the log. Technically, nothing happened in the log, which means the master data management does not care about the deletion of the record. And that seems odd because there is a field, so it should cater that thing, but it does not do that. It did not do that. So keep that in mind that as of this moment, it does not cater any deletion of the record. Anytime if you delete a record, it is not going to sync it into the child companies, which may be work in progress. I don't know, but it's something which is at this moment not working. I hope that it works someday. Okay, now the last part of it, more or less. Now, remember we have one more company here, which is empty at this moment, called new company. Now, Saurav, you would like me to do everything again? No. What you can do is you can come to the company where you have built all the setup that makes sense and you have tested it out and everything looks good. You can again go to MDM page and the master data management under actions, you can export the setup. You'll download an XML file and then going into your other company and searching for MDM, you can just go ahead and import, for which you will also have to set up the company for sure. So let's set that up, and not yet. Okay, let's enable this. And that was the second last thing. I forgot one thing. We'll come to this in a while. So I'll do import setup and yes. And let me go to my download folders and drag my file in here. As soon as I select that file, It'll start reading it and it'll build all my setup the way I have set it up. So now if I go back into my synchronization table, it'll have everything that I set there. Even on my customer table, it'll have the field set to overwrite local values wherever I set it on the salesperson code. So you don't have to do it every time. You can just set it up once and bring it forward. Now the last thing, sorry, this should be the last thing, which we didn't cover, which is about the table extensions or table that you have. So what I've done is in this environment, in the extension management, I already have an extension which I haven't published yet called MDM demo, and let me just install this. Okay, installed. Okay, that got installed. Now what this extension brings into picture is on a customer table or customer page, there's a new field kind of added. And this might be not the right company. Let me go into the master company and try this. So on the customer table, we have added one more field, and that field should populate here called demo field. And there are values into it, D1, D2, D3, D4, D5. And then I also have one more table, a new table called SDH demo field. And this have, no, this is not. Okay. Demo. Okay. I don't see a page, and that is a little bit off. Okay. Let me see. There should be one more page into it, if I haven't forgot about it. Or let me just publish this extension again. Or let me search for this page. That page is called SDH demo page. And I made sure that it is searchable. So let's search for it. No. Okay, but let's publish this if needed, so that we complete the demo. So let me copy this and change my launch.json and publish this. Control F5. So the idea is that we will test out what happens in case of a table extension that you get that you deploy after you have set up MDM, and what happens with the new tables and how you set it up, because those are the two very important areas of the custom that we do for our customers, and sometimes those values are very important to keep the data in sync based on the customer need. Okay, let's come back here, and now let's search for SDH demo page. Okay, and there's no data, no surprise. This is a store, so I'm not going to do that here. This is again a store, this is store, this is master. Okay, so let's try here. Okay, I'll have to refresh this. Okay, send demo. What's happening? I can find it here there, and I cannot find it here. That seems a little bit off. Let me search that. Okay, SDH. I can find it here. Not on this one, maybe on this one. Demo page. Okay, maybe I need to kind of re-log out and re-log in on these two environments other than where it got published. Okay, that's simple. I'll just go in and open this into a new tab, and same for this, and open a new tab. Okay, this is Macronas USA, where we'll populate some data, and then we'll see how you bring new fields in. As in, we already have a field, so let's test that out. So now when you come into your synchronization table page, and you know that you have deployed a new extension which comes up with new field. When you come to the customer table, you click on fields. You technically at this point don't see any field from the extension if that is deployed after it. The last number is this. So what you need to do is on the top there is an action called update fields, and as soon as you click on it, it reruns the schema check and identifies if there is a new field and tells you how many fields are added. So now if you look at it, there should be a 50,000 field called demo field, and it's by default set to disable, so you can enable it. So whenever you sync it now, the demo field will also get copied. So that simple is to set up uh, a table extension field. Now let's talk about the table that we have added. Let me just quickly check the table ID. It's at 50,000. Okay. So what you do then, you click on new, you get a list of all the tables that are there in system, either from Microsoft extension, ISV extension, or your PTEs. Click OK. That brings up the table and that brings both the fields. So we will set them to enable. And then we don't want any validation, so on and so forth. So we're good here. Let's go back and load some data into it. If we still have the field, the table pop up here. For some reason, it is not popping up here, which is bad. And I don't understand why it does not displays it that here. But that should call as demo pages, which is not okay. Okay, let's assume that there is some data. So that's how you add it. We have just added that table here and it'll get placed in the sequence. And then what I'll do is I'll have to do a customer sync. Or this is, are there customers on this? Let's have a look. Okay. There are customers. Okay. Right now, if I look at it, it should not have any fields with data that is coming from the extension. It is empty. So what I can do is now I can go back to my MDM, identify the table that I'm dealing with, which is the customer table, and do a synchronize. It's scheduled, and if everything goes well in this company also, I should see that there is a value attached to this once the synchronization is over, which is still happening, it seems. But remember this, at this point, there has been no change in the table itself. At the parent level, the data was already there in this case, which you will not have. But let's try to modify some values here. Okay. Let's do this as the 11. Let's change this 1 to 12, and so on and so forth. And as you make changes, because that's how it gets, the job queue kind of gets triggered and understand that there is a change, because you are making a change right now. For the demo, I don't know why I kept the data in place, but if there is already data which is not in sync, I'll not sync that. So now if I look at it, it should tell me that the sync has been completed and it's bringing that tables into it. If everything is good, then in my MDM setup, synchronize table, I can just also sync the new table that I just added and where that table went. Okay, I did add the table, and for some reason, did I add it here? Somewhere. So whenever you add it, this is the table. So I can just see the log. Did anything got transferred? Nothing. Oh, there are 2 record inserted. So now if I look at the demo table, demo page, oh, it is out of my license. So sorry guys, that was a problem, but it eventually comes into the picture because I guess I incorrectly numbered the field, but you can eventually run that data. So before we move out of it, let's do a quick summary of what we did today so that you remember what we did. So it's a pull, not a push. So the child company need to pull record from the master. It will not push the records. As of this moment, all the companies should be part of the same tenant. If you have multiple tenant for a customer, the master data management will not work for it as of this moment with 2023 release wave 1. The master data management, if you have multiple companies, allows you to export and import the setup and then import into the new child company that's needed. The insert is working as we saw. The modify on the record on the master company happens seamlessly. If there are modified record at the child which are not in sync with the parent, then you need to make sure that the local changes are not allowed in that field or table. The delete operation is currently as tested not working, so keep that in mind. The record level filtering you can do at a record level that these records will not come forward and so on and so forth. You can also do a field level filter on what is enabled and what is not enabled to be synced. And then last but not least is coupling. So remember that you can either do a full table sync or couple record based on the best case scenario is the primary key. Keeping that in mind, if you still have some questions, please drop into the comments and I'll happy to answer those. If you learn something new, please do share this video. If you're new to this channel and watching this as the first video, please do subscribe to the channel. That helps us to understand that we are working on the right direction. And I'll see you next day with the next video about Business Central